Yo sup, this is NY3. We're on Dueling Book today. The first time I believe for this channel, so we're trying something out, see what works going forward. But yeah, the next archetype that has caught my attention has finally been announced. Deck is announced for a core set, so the TCG will definitely be getting it, and we're probably going to get it around May of next year. Now, if you know me, I'm a huge fan of dragons and a huge fan of synchros, so of course this dragon synchro deck is going to catch my attention. I'm also a huge fan of combos. Now this deck does have some combo potential, but in the pure sense, as in like not hybriding this deck with another deck or running this deck as an engine in another deck, in the pure sense, this is a pure aggro deck, which is quite interesting to me because pure aggro has not been viable for the longest time. Like the previous pure aggro deck that was viable was like what, Green Maju, which was ages ago. So yeah, quite interesting that they're reviving a playstyle that has not been viable for a long time. Decks these days tend to be combo control exclusively. For me personally, previous pure aggro deck I've played are Heretics, which is, you know, that has been a minute, right? Now, unlike Heretics, which was a combo aggro balls to the wall, zero recovery type of aggro deck, this is a mid-range aggro deck, but its damage output is anything but mid-range. In fact, this damage output is lethal every single turn with just one card, like every single turn. Great resource management, and one card can just go for overkill. And it's gonna need that like power because, again, aggro deck has not been viable for the longest time, so it's gonna need something like that to keep up with the power creep and the modern game. Another thing I really like about this deck is that it utilizes two very underutilized mechanics in my opinion, which are attribute and types. Konami, when designing archetypes, has been very xenophobic about it, where archetypes sort of only work with themselves, like other cards in the archetypes, its name. And this deck does not care about naming at all. It only cares about fire dragons. So this is a very open-ended deck that I'm sure a lot of deck builders like myself has been waiting to see from Konami. Right. Essentially what I'm saying is Konami's xenophobic archetype design has not been letting me cook. Okay? This open-ended design, I see a lot of potential for deck builders to cook up something spicy. Now, with the 7 cards released, they have about 3 effects each, so about 21 different effects, and 20 of them has 0 xenophobic restrictions. Half of these effects aren't even hard ones per turn, so only like half of them are hard ones per turn, which again is a huge upside to deck builders. When we're talking about hard ones per turn effects, essentially what Konami is doing is Konami is setting the ceiling of the deck, whereas with these non-xenophobic, non-hard ones per turn effects, what's setting the ceiling of the decks are the deck builder's imagination. So that is something else I really like. Now I did say that the naming does not matter, but we'll just go over the 3 different namings that this deck has. The first one is the shared name between the 3 main deck monsters. The second name is this other shared name between the extra deck monsters and the spell traps. And the third shared name, which is just the flavor text basically, but Dragion, is shared between the synchro monsters. So this does pay homage to Trident Dragion, which is one of the first synchros to ever be released, and it's also one of my first favorite boss monsters. I used to summon Trident Dragion all the time back in, I believe, plant synchro format. I used Debris Dragon to summon it, back when, like, you know, pre-errata Debris Dragon, back when it still could summon Trident Dragion, and that was one of my favorite go-to plays for the 9000 damage OTK. So yeah, that's just another layer of appreciation that I have for this deck. But as I said, these names does not matter right now, so I'm just gonna collectively call this group of cards like the Mahjong Dragons, because that's what they're based off. Now, being based off Mahjong, if you know anything about Mahjong, it's a game with 3 suites. So we're basically expecting no more main deck monsters than these 3 that we're getting right now, since each of them represent a suite. It's like, imagine playing cards, a deck based on playing cards, and they released a monster called diamonds, one called clubs, one called spades, one called hearts. Once those four are out, you're expecting no more monsters, right? Because they've covered every single suite, and it's obviously based on suites, right? So yeah, that's kind of the situation we're in with this deck. There's going to be one of those mini archetypes, kind of like digital bugs. They just like come out with 3 different monsters. I think digital bugs only have 3 different main deck monsters, and then like no support ever again kind of scenario. Although this deck obviously does have potential for support for the extra deck monsters as well as spell traps. One of them even searches spell traps. They say spell traps, but all we're getting are 2 spells. So yeah, I feel like we should expect at least some traps in the future for that. But yeah, let's do the card by card. So the main guy of this deck, I believe, should be this, because it is a synchro deck and this is the tuner of the deck. We have 1 level 4 tuner and 2 level 3 non-tuners in the deck. So immediately you'd expect this deck to be able to access level 7s and level 10 synchros respectively. And yeah, of course, 2 in archetype support synchros that they release are level 7 and 10 respectively. So all 3 of them share a soft once per turn. During the battle phase, you can quick synchro using this card and any other guys you control. So yeah, the tuner has it, the non-tuners also have it. So all 3 of them have this shared quick synchro ability, which is nice. On top of that, all of them are basically extenders as well as starters, kind of. So Chandra, this tuner, can be special summoned from your hand hard once per turn if you control a fire dragon monster. It also has another hard once per turn, which is if anybody battles, you can special summon 1 level 4 or lower fire dragon from your deck, except himself. Hydra, when it's normal or special summon, you can add a spell trap or set it. And Fadra is when it's normal, special, or if anybody battles, you can reborn a level 4 lower fire dragon from your graveyard. So yeah, all of them are starter slash extenders as well as quick synchros. Now looking at the spell trap options, you can search with Hydra. There's only 2 right now. Opening, which has 2 different effects. You can only activate one of this quick play once per turn, but it has 2 different effects. If you use it in the battle phase, you get both effects. If you use it outside the battle phase, you only get 1 effect. And the effects are adding a level 4 or lower fire dragon from your deck to your hand, and the other effect is special summoning 1 fire dragon monster from your hand. You can special summon the same one that you added if you use this in the battle phase. The second card that this deck gets is a field spell. But anyways, the archetype field spell for this deck, its first effect is a continuous effect. It's kind of like a mix of magical Midbreaker Field and Miscellaneousaurus. During main phase 1, all of your fire dragon monsters are unaffected by activated effects. Right, that's basically Miscellaneousaurus for fire dragons. Right, it prevents you from getting nibbed. So like, you know, magical Midbreaker Field only stopped like cards like Effect Veiler and Imperm, but this one also stops things like nib as well, only during your main phase 1. Based on how hard this deck OTKs, your opponent shouldn't be able to get a main phase 2, but yeah, they can nib you in main phase 2 if you fail to kill them somehow with this deck. The second effect is like Dragon's Ravine basically. During your main phase, you can add one of these guys and then discard 1 card. So unlike Dragon Ravine, the discard is not a cost. So if your opponent ashes it, you don't lose a card for that. Then discard 1 card being an effect. You know, if you pair this up with something. So, you know, I guess it will trigger Dark World effects, unlike Dragon's Ravine, or any other like hybrids that you can think of with this deck. It can also discard the card that you just added. So, you know, instead of getting a search, maybe you already have everything you need, and you just need a dude in the graveyard for Fadra to revive. So you could just use that as basically a Foolish Burial as well. So basically better than Dragon's Ravine. And the third effect, well, the adders are once per turn, but the third effect is if this card is destroyed during the battle phase, you can target one Dragon Synchro monster you control, its attack becomes doubled. So it's a nice OTK piece if you need to overkill your opponent. Now, overkilling your opponent might not seem that useful, but if you're running cards like Pot of Prosperity that halves your battle damage, something like this could be the difference between game and not, because you need to be basically doing 16,000 damage rather than 8,000 in that case. Now, as for the boss monsters of the archetype, the level 7 is a Synchro Tuner, so it's going to be able to let you climb into level 10s quite easily. It requires Dragon Tuner plus one or more non-tuner dragons as well. It has a hard once per turn effect. If this is synchro summoned, you can reborn a fire dragon from your graveyard, and you can only summon dragons for the rest of the turn. So this is that one xenophobic effect that I was talking about that the deck does have. Yeah, so it reborns kind of like Fadra. In fact, you can reborn Fadra and reborn another guy if you have not used Fadra's hard once per turn reborn that turn yet, because it doesn't even negate the effect, which is nice. But Fadra has the level 4 or lower restriction on it, whereas this guy does not. It also has a second effect, which is a hard once per duel effect, and it's if 3 or more attacks have been declared this turn, you can special summon this from your graveyard, then you can destroy one spell trap on the field. So you can destroy the field spell and double its attack. You know, you can attack, quick synchro into this, attack, quick synchro into another guy, attack, and then that's already like more than 3 attacks, and you can just reborn this, pop this, and this is like 5,200 attack. And you can attack again. Yeah, and the level 10 again uses Dragon Tuner and Dragon non-tuners to make. It has 3 different effects. The last effect is similar to the previous one, so I'll just go over that first. If 3 or more attacks have been declared this turn, hard once per duel, you can quick summon this from your graveyard, and then you can destroy one card on the field. So it's a slight upgrade. Rather than destroy a spell trap, it destroys one card on the field. Its other 2 effects, if this is synchro summoned, change everybody to attack position. Now I kind of like this effect actually, for combo purposes. Like, obviously it's intended to get more damage in, but you know, imagine if you get hit with like a Ultimate Conductor Tyranno flipping all your dudes face down, or a Book of Eclipse flipping all of your dudes face down. After something like that has happened, that's quite detrimental for combo decks, because not only did a bunch of your materials get flipped face down and you can't use them to continue your combo anymore, unless of course you're playing a Contact Fusion deck. It's going to be quite annoying, as well as you have a bunch of clogged up zones. But after that, if you get like hit by a Book of Eclipse or something, if you have enough materials to summon this, you can flip everybody back face up and then continue your combo with all those zones and with all those materials that you originally intended to use. So I really like that for that. Finally, its last effect is all of your opponent's monsters must attack if able. So basically final attack orders changes everyone to attack mode and have to attack if able. Also, here's the main part, your opponent cannot activate anything during the battle phase. Now, so it's kind of like a Meteor Burst. Funnily enough, Meteor Burst is a level 7 Fire Dragon synchro that you can summon with this deck, but I feel like this effect right here just makes Meteor Burst basically irrelevant. Your opponent can't interact with you during the battle phase once this guy hits the field, and you're basically trying to overkill OTK him with this deck. So, you know, this honestly, this effect right here, this floodgatey effect here, is kind of toxic, to be honest. You pair that up with like during your main phase 1, all your dudes are unaffected, and you summon this. During your battle phase, your opponent cannot activate anything, and this being an OTK deck, it does have some potential to be like quite toxic, to be honest. And especially if you're playing the mirror match, if this deck gains a decent amount of traction, and mirror matches happen quite often, like this is just, you know, like gonna be the worst mirror match ever. All of these guys, you're relying on their quick synchro effects in the battle phase to do things and not die. Yeah, these guys don't say main phase or battle phase. These guys straight up just say during the battle phase. So once this guy hits the field, like, it's just over. Like, whoever summons this and attacks, like, the other guy just can't do anything about it. So that's kind of unfortunate. Yeah, it's also worth noting that this broken effect here for the mirror match does not stop continuous effects, which brings back to two effects that I've missed on one each on the non-tuners. So Fadra has a continuous effect. Your fire dragons can't die by battle, and Pydra has your fire dragons you don't take any battle damage when you're battling with fire dragons. This effect is actually kind of crazy if you think about it, because it includes itself. So this is like your modern day Spirit Reaper or Marshmallow kind of thing. This guy will switch this to attack mode, but this guy being 1600, even though it can't be destroyed by battle, you will still be taking quite a bit of damage, but all of your hits are going to be dampened by 1600. So yeah, I guess the mirror match is slightly more bearable now with that in mind. You do have like a guy that just can wall up for you, and if you have Pydra as well on top of it, yeah, then being switched to attack mode doesn't even matter because you can't even do battle damage on top of it anyways. As for the artwork, it's quite obvious what they're going for. The level 7 one has this vermilion colored guy as well as this cream colored guy. Together, two-headed dragon, 4+3 makes the level 7 one. The level 10 one has all three heads, so the vermilion one, the cream one, and the azure one combined in this level 10. It does give quite a hope for a third synchro monster. Obviously you need the vermilion guy because he's the only tuner of this deck, but if you combine the head of that plus the head of the azure one, I feel like there's an opening for another level 7 synchro somewhere down the line. But yeah, this deck, you know, no restrictions, so it can make any level 7 or level 10 synchros, unless you try to climb with this one, the Bident Dragon, then you are locked into dragons. But you know, for 7s you can really summon anything you want. I got a couple that I really like here. You know, you could Black Rose them in the battle phase. Moonlight Rose, you can bounce a guy in the battle phase. There's also some of the new ones. It's probably in the side deck. Clearwing Fast Dragon, you can negate a guy and turn a guy to 0 attack in the battle phase, which is nice. Dawn Dragster, probably not that much sense making this in the battle phase, but it is a nice level 7. You got stuff like Eye Blaze. This, funnily enough, the fire level 7 synchros actually mesh with the deck the best, even though you can make any, but like it still turns out the fire ones are like the best. This guy can attack twice, and at the end phase you can add your dudes back to your hand, which is really nice. Salamander, draw 2, then send 2, including a fire. I see this being very useful in some hybrids, especially like level hybrids. Level 10s you can go into, like things like Alley of Justice, Decisive Armor is actually pretty funny. Like if they nib you, they're gonna have a light on the field, and then if you can go into Decisive Armor and use like the third effect, if they're playing a light deck, you could just like FTK them. Yeah, pretty funny card. Baron, obviously level 10. Like a lot of good level 10s have been released recently. The Bastille level 10. There might be some light and dark hybrids that could utilize this quite well. It's just a lot of options. Yeah, even Zolkin's an option because this guy, the level 7 synchro, doesn't have a restriction on what level fire dragon you can summon from your graveyard. So if you reborn a blaster with this, you have a level 7 tuner and a level 7 non-tuner, you could just go into Ultimize Zolkin, which is pretty funny. And of course, it doesn't lock you. This deck doesn't like lock you into synchros or anything, so you still have your nice link options, mainly Heretic Seal of Heavenly Spheres, which I think is really good. Like both its effect, of course the disruption effect, but summoning from deck, like all of these guys, like this guy searches spell trap on summon, this guy reborns a guy on summon, right? Like, so yeah. Heavenly Sphere summoning a dude on your opponent's turn is just a lot of pluses, which guarantees you a play on the next turn. I mean, the field spell already guarantees you a play on the next turn, but you know, it just doesn't hurt to have more cards, does it? Yeah, and of course, like Trident Dragon meshes with the deck very well as well. If you summon this during the battle phase with this guy, plus like reborning a level 3 non-tuner with the effect to quick synchro on in your battle phase into Trident Dragon. On synchro summon, it can pop the field spell, and it's 6k attacks twice. If you have another fodder you can pop, it's gonna be 6k attacks 3 times. So yeah, the OG Trident Dragon actually having a role in this deck is pretty funny and pretty awesome in my opinion. The final card that I want to talk about, which is, you know, I don't have time to like in this video to talk about all the non-level 7 and level 10 synchros that we can potentially play with Shooting Riser Dragon. But this does basically open you up to any level synchros. Right, Shooting Riser Dragon being a 7 you can make, which is this deck specialty. You can drop a guy into the graveyard and change its level. It also, yeah, since you can be making this on your opponent's turn, you can also drop some guys with relevant graveyard effects to use on your own turn. The graveyard effect just can't be used on the same turn that you put it in the graveyard with Shooting Riser Dragon. But, you know, if you do it on your opponent's turn, when it comes back to your turn, you're gonna be able to use that effect. So yeah, this card is like more than one video worth of talking on its own. So we won't go into that much. But yeah, Fire Dragons, surprisingly there weren't that many usable Fire Dragons to mesh well with this deck, especially not many good level 4 or lower Fire Dragons, which is actually kind of surprising. Traditionally, Dragons has been, you know, like a 5D's era and before, Dragons has been wind and fire type, mostly. Nowadays, of course, it's basically completely owned by light and dark dragons. But yeah, it's sad to see that Fire Dragons has not gotten any love for the longest time. Like, it's basically near extinction combination of attribute and types. So that's quite sad to see. Some of the new Fire Dragons that seem pretty decent, so like these guys. Yeah, they're all high level unfortunately, but they are pretty decent Fire Dragons to play around with. Blaster, of course, it's at 1 right now. Meshes very well with this deck. I think this is like the most no-brainer addition to this deck if you want to run it like that. Yeah, if you hybrid this deck with any other deck, kind of like Shooting Riser Dragon, I just don't want to talk about it. It'll be way too long of a video, but you can obviously access any level synchros based on what you're hybriding this deck with, right? Only the pure needs to care about 7s and 10s and shooting Riser Dragon combinations. If you're hybriding this deck, you know, like these quick synchros, all you need to do with them is use themselves as the synchro material. It doesn't have any restrictions on what it summons or what the other materials are. I guess Prometheus is also worth talking about. If you drop like a vanilla with shooting Riser Dragon, you can just reborn Prometheus, and it just like opens up like quick Trishula plays on your opponent's turn and stuff like that, which is nice. Yeah, there's just a lot you can do with this deck, basically, is what I'm getting at. If we have a look at some of the one card plays that this deck can do, obviously going second, each of the 5 cards of your main deck, like, you know, the field spell can search, or the quick play spell can search, all of them are basically one card combo, with exception of the guy that reborns the azure colored one. But yeah, you basically have like 12 to 15 starters, so it's kind of enough to play small deck. By small deck, I mean like a deck with kind of like Skyscraper, where you have like 20 or less engine cards and you fill the rest up with hand traps. You can't play a pure big deck with this, and by big deck I mean like 35 or more combo piece decks, unless you hybrid it with another deck. But yeah, all of these are essentially one card combos or one card OTKs. So say if you're going second, for example, this guy right here, let's just see how much damage it does. I haven't actually done this myself. Let's just say, let's just start at 16,000 life points, because that's how much damage you're going to need to do if you want to play Prosperity in this deck. But yeah, if you normal this guy, go into battle phase, attack. Start of damage step, you get to special summon a guy. You special summon Hydra from your deck. Effect to search opening. Attack 16. Whoops. 16. You can use both effects since it's in the battle phase. Actually, you don't use it yet. You quick synchro first. So you quick synchro for this guy. Effect to bring back, say this guy. You know, they can attack again. Like, none of these summons in defense mode or anything, so that's another 15 and another 2/6. Yeah, and then if you do the opening now, you can add and special summon this one. Attack. You can do it in the damage step with this effect, or you can do it on summon, it doesn't matter, but reborn. And then actually this is 1/7, so I've missed out on like 200 damage, so there should be like 200 more. So at this point you've already done this much damage. You can quick synchro again. Yeah, you can quick synchro again. You can get rid of these two for this guy. And then that's another 3000 damage. Since you've attacked 3 times, you can just summon this guy, can't you? And then that's another 26. That's already gained. And then you can quick synchro these 2 guys as well. Try to Dragon pop both. And that's another 9,000 on top of the 16,000 that we just did. And then I believe you can summon this guy again for another 3,000. So that's about 30,000 damage from one card. Assuming I haven't done any illegal plays. Which is quite ridiculous, right? Which is quite the case for you to just run a small deck with You know, if you run 3 of everything, that's just a 15 card engine, and then you can run 25 hand traps. Just stop your opponent, and then 1 card OTK them. It's like, actually no, the Numeron Network is probably the most recent pure aggro deck that is viable in Yu-Gi-Oh! Yeah, essentially that deck just puts in a bunch of board breakers and hand traps, and then do their 1 card OTK. Except this is like just much more efficient at it. Right, that deck has to like use limit removal to get to a big damage, and it only has like, it doesn't have anywhere near 15 or 12 starters. It only has like, it has like much less than that. So yeah, you could play it as basically a better version of that deck. You know, 25 hand traps, 15 1 card OTK starters. Right, and if for some reason the OTK fails, you still can, you know, make Heavenly Spheres, which is a form of disruption, as well as, you know, it's going to be able to summon like this guy on your opponent's turn. If you reborn this, you are guaranteed to play next turn. If you reborn this guy, you get like a quick synchro Black Rose in your opponent's battle phase. Like, it's just so many things we can do here. It's pretty good, isn't it? There's quite a few other cool level 7 and 10s that I would like to just touch upon before ending this video. Ancient Fairy Dragon, one of my favorites. One of my favorite cards of all time. Search any field spell, seems nice. Deep Sea Prima Donna, generic tuner, level 7 synchro tuner. It's nice because it gives you access to these weird guys that you normally wouldn't have access to that requires a water tuner, like this new Lancia Dragon that just came out, or this Ice Jade synchro that just came out, which is pretty cool. Yeah, this is just another one of those, it's another new level 7 synchro. On summon, you can pop a guy. If this guy's, you can make a guy can't attack, so some more defensive options. I think Black Rose is still going to be the best one, or like Moonlight Rose is probably going to be the second best battle phase quick synchro 7s that we have. But yeah, Maple Maiden, you can, it's like a DNA transplant. You can change the attributes of everything. This might be relevant in some matchups as a floodgate of sorts, kind of like Buster Dragon, how, you know, you summon Buster Dragon, everything becomes a dragon, that level 8 synchro, and then that screws around with some decks that require specific typings. Yeah, Master Fleet Hyperion, nice level 10, Odd Eyes Media Burst, kind of redundant, because the level 10 just does the same thing but better. What's the level 10? This guy. Yeah, no anti-battle phase tricks. Cypherane Lord Zeta. So if they try to like bait your quick synchros in the battle phase, but you don't want to like do something on the summon, you can like summon Zeta and then do something later. That's a nice option. Yeah, another good level 10, the Sword Soul level 10. It's alright, it's a bit mid, to be honest. Obviously you can't summon these non-dragons if you use this guy's effect to reborn during the battle phase. Something to keep in mind. And this Ancient as Synchro X-Saber Herbellum, you know, you can get rid of a card from their hand if you are unable to OTK for some reason. Might be an option. But yeah, that will be all for this video. Hopefully you guys are as hyped as me for this deck.